Analyst. You also have Joseph Chege, who is a youth and political analyst. Gentlemen, good to have you in studio. Youth policy issues, youth matters. Good to have you in studio. Dennis, was looking for the poster on Twitter and I came across this tweet of yours. How the heck is Sabina Chege, whose allegiance lies with the majority side, supposed to whip the minority side? How practical is this? What did you make of the events that transpired, before we get into the papers, that transpired yesterday in Parliament?
Yeah, good morning, our viewers, and thank you again, Ali, for inviting me once more. And you know, the drama and the theatrics we witnessed yesterday in the Parliament, man, it's a joke, you know. I wonder why the majority is insisting to control the minority in Parliament. There's a reason why we have those structures within Parliament. And if the minority side do not want Sabina Chege to be their minority leader, then why are you insisting? You know, it's funny how Moses Wetangula, I think he will go to the archives of history as one of the worst speakers in history. He took almost 8 minutes to calm down the situation that was happening in Parliament. And when he said that there is a court order barring Azimio from removing Sabina Chege from the seat, you know, I wonder how court can pronounce itself on matters, you know. Look at how Jubilee, rather the Kenya Kwanza, was insisting that Sabina Chege, what is their interest in all this? Why are they insisting? Who is to benefit? If Sabina Chege is a member of, right now, quote-unquote, Kenya Kwanza, why in the world is she still the Azimio, rather representing the Azimio as the whip? You know, if you look at Article, I think, on the Political Parties Act, if you look at Section 14, I think Part D and E, we are told that if a member is deemed to have left their political party and supporting the agenda of the other political party, it means that they have crossed over and therefore, as such, they're supposed to resign. So Sabina Chege is still insisting that she is the minority whip, and Kenya Kwanza taking side in matters that do not even involve them. And Speaker, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Wetangula, saying that there's court order. This court order, nobody has seen it. Who was served with this court order? The Azimio side has not interrogated that court order. So saying that there's a court order barring Sabina Chege from being removed from that seat, I think that is ludicrous.
All right, Joseph, do you read mischief in how the speaker has conducted himself, given that even during the national prayer breakfast that was held at Safari Park, hosted by Parliament, the 20th, he called up Sabina Chege to make remarks? What did you make of that?
This is not news to Kenyans lately. We have seen a government that is hell-bent to make sure that there is no opposition and there's no a different voice or a different opinion, maybe in the parliament or in the country. As Jubilee members, we feel sad that the only position we had, only one position for nomination we had so many women across the country. We could have given the nomination slot. But we looked around and we gave to Sabina Chege. We thought rightly that she was going to represent our interest. Truly, do we know that when she goes there, she will present her own interest? And that's what she's doing. All the woes we are having in Jubilee can be traced prima facie to her. She's the reason that Jubilee is in the hole we are now. Because she's trying even to take it over from our party leader, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. She goes to Parliament. When she goes to Parliament, she knows she has crossed over to Kenya Kwanza. In fact, she should even leave the nominated slot because she was not elected. She was given that slot for being in Azimio or in Jubilee, but she closed over. We have seen her in State House many times, advancing the interest of Kenya Kwanza. We also, in the Kenya Kwanza Parliamentary Group meeting, we saw her attending. Sabina Chege is being used by this regime to show Kenyans the contempt that you can be in Azimio, but we can take you over to represent the government, and you cannot represent the voice of the people, and there's nothing anyone can do. And that's why we are saying, where we are heading as a nation, it is time Kenyans take to the streets and demand what is rightful theirs. Because when you see a Speaker of National Assembly, he knows very well that Sabina Chege has crossed over, because it's logic. It's logic. And my friend Dennis has said here, the constitution seems, when we are deemed, it's not even like you have crossed. If there is a perception that you have crossed, a perception, you must do the honorable thing and leave. But is she doing that? She's not. She wants the chaos to happen. She wants to fight for it. Fighting for what? She should, even like a gentle woman, leave the nominated slot she was given, cross over to Kenya Kwanza, given a director or a board or something, and leave us with peace. All right. That's how our country is run.
Okay, so we're expecting Advice Mundalo and Askon Kamili shortly, and we'll get their take on the subject. But several questions arise for me. One, is this her fight, or she's being used to fight a bigger fight? Secondly, for me, the Parliament has previously there's a precedent that has been set that the judicial arm of Parliament cannot dictate how the legislature conducts its business. So why now? And then the third question that arises for me, which I already raised, is has the Speaker demonstrated himself to be impartial in these matters? And if Azimio cannot counter this, or has been has unsuccessfully tried to replace Sabina Chege, can you then take on the finance bill, or ndo mnasema twende kwa streets? All right, let's take a look at the Daily Nation to begin with. And Raila's 10 demands for Ruto. Opposition leader Raila Odinga has offered President William Ruto a 10-point economic blueprint he says is a better alternative to the high taxes proposed by the government in the finance bill. Mr. Odinga wants the government to stop duplication of county roles and responsibilities, curb wastage in the executive, and seal corruption loopholes, even as he maintains subsidies on basic goods must be reinstated and the proposal to increase taxes on goods and salaries be withdrawn from the bill. So this is the front page story on the Daily Nation. Finance bill opposition warns of a return to mass action should the draft law sail through. Sharing the front page is this story: ex-State House official in 413 million shilling child support fight. You know we love the tea. So I'm sure many people are like, more details. A woman has filed a child maintenance case against a former senior State House official, alleging that he has abandoned his parental responsibilities over their 3 minors. The woman is demanding a monthly maintenance of 2.7 million shillings to cater for the maintenance of their 3 children. In the alternative, she wants him to deposit a sum of 413 million shillings as maintenance costs for the minors until they turn 18. The estimated total monthly expenditure, let's take a look at that: 600,000 shillings per month for subsistence, that is food, toiletries, personal effects and grooming for 3 minors. 555,555 shillings. The rent has been reviewed upwards over the years and is expected to cost higher this year. 250,000 per month in for utility bills, that is water, cooking gas, electricity, backup generator and car fuel. 300,000 monthly entertainment per child, and salaries for staff taking care of the minors and home in general. A nanny, trained nurse or governess, 163,692 gross pay per month. Housekeeper, 48,677 gross pay per month. Chef, 77,614 gross pay per month. A driver, 77,614 gross pay per month. Security guards, as per the assessment by the security firm. And then there is occasional expenditure: 300,000 for every child per quarter to cater for clothing and specialized sports garments. 632,285 per term, as per the last school fees invoice issued for firstborn in 2019. 414,000 per child per term, as per the last invoice issued for the other 2 children. 60,000 per child every quarter for age-appropriate toys and games, and 100,000 shillings per child. No, a million, right? Dennis, am I reading that correctly? You're the numbers guy. Okay. Per child annually to cater for birthday celebrations. Okay. Interesting story. They tell us to flip through to page 10 for more details. No names, at least on the front page. Let us see if they have spilt the tea on page 10 as to who this is. No, they have not. They just identify the woman as Miss AK repeatedly. That's it. And she wants Mr. JG. Okay, so all we have is AK and JG. But I'm sure the speculation will be rife. Okay, speaking of food security, win for farmers as MPs add 4 billion shillings for fertilizer subsidies. MPs have proposed an additional 4 billion shillings for buying cheap fertilizer in 2023-2024 financial year, raising the total allocation to 8.5 billion shillings as part of the Kenya Kwanza administration's efforts to reduce the cost of living. And teachers, it will cost you, so this is something that's on page 3, it will cost you 560,000 shillings to own First Lady's bicycle. My cousin is a cyclist and she told me hers cost about 80,000 shillings. They're not cheap. You know, sometimes when we think of bicycles, we think Black Mamba. Yeah. Okay. Still on the front page, teachers sue insurer over poor services. They want the Employment and Labor Relations Court to compel Minet Kenya insurance brokers to ensure the main service provider offers quality services to match the 51.4 billion shillings. It's a lot of money allocated to it, but I suppose the teachers are also quite a number. Details have emerged, and this particular report is by Richard Munguti. On the back page, details have emerged of the multi-billion shilling teachers. Oh, there it is. Teachers' health insurance cover following the filing of a case by some tutors who allege that they're not getting value for their money and that services are substandard. The teachers now want the Employment and Labor Relations Court to compel Minet Kenya Insurance Brokers Limited to ensure the main service provider offers quality services to match the 51.4 billion shillings allocated to it. The teachers also accuse the TSC of allocating 60 million shillings to a, quote, ghost company for actuarial services without advertising for competitive bidding. Of the total contractual amount, 53 billion shillings signed between Minet and TSC, 51.4 billion has been allocated to the master, what is that, capitator? Bliss Healthcare Services. Okay, so for more details, tafadhali tunaomba Mununue Daily Nation. You can also get it on epaper.nation.africa. All right, let's take a look at the front page of the Business Daily. Kenya's rich get richer as gap with the poor widens. Income inequality rose to 38.9% in 2021 from 35.8%. Richest 20% accounts for 42.2% on consumption. And this particular report has been filed by one Dominic Omondi, and yeah, so that has to do with inequality. I see an image there. Is that Nerima Wako, DPP Nurdin Haji? I can't quite identify the gentleman on the right, but basically they were at a Ford Foundation event that was addressing bridging inequality. All right, farther down, sharing the front page, Saudi Arabia overtakes China as Kenya's top import market. Saudi Arabia overtook China, India, and the UAE to become Kenya's biggest single import market for the first time, underlining the weight of petroleum products in driving the country's trade deficit. Quickly taking a look at the ticker, CBK governor warning on domestic borrowing. Interesting this. Outgoing Central Bank of Kenya Governor Patrick Njoroge has warned that the government will in the upcoming fiscal year face an uphill task in realizing its borrowing target from the domestic market. Should we look at it in a bit more detail? Page 4. Okay, here we go. This particular report penned by our head of business and technology, no less, Julian's Amboko. And so further, the paragraphs read, the CBK says the 521.5 billion shillings to be sought from the domestic market is a tall order and risks having perverse outcomes at a time the market is struggling to woo investors. The CBK now wants the National Assembly to compel the Treasury to revise downward the planned domestic borrowing for the financial year 2023-2024, citing challenges in the market's ability to raise the target. There is a quote here, and it reads, "The domestic market has continued to support growing budgetary financing requirements. However, due to elevated financing needs, the capacity for the domestic market to finance deficits, especially in the last 2 financial years, has been limited." The CBK raised 89% of the borrowing program target in the 2021-2022 fiscal year and 57.3% of the 2022-2023 borrowing target, that is 249.1 billion shillings, as of May the 31st, the Apex Bank says. This comes as the National Assembly's Budget and Appropriations Committee recommended that the House increase the planned spending for the next financial year by 80.7 billion to 3.69 trillion shillings. Okay. And when I look at the last 2 paragraphs, let's see. There's another quote here. Tight domestic conditions continue to prevail due to the delayed budgetary external financing against the backdrop of elevated inflationary pressures, heightened geopolitical tensions, and significant financial market volatility. And he continues to say the domestic borrowing target is quite ambitious due to limited market capacity. And the last few paragraphs, as I had mentioned, this warning on fiscal dominance comes as Dr. Njoroge exits the stage, paving the way for Dr. Kamau Thuge. And in May, the government issued 2 tap sales on a 3-year bond, an indication that the exchequer has switched gears to lean on shorter-term bonds as it confronts the market realities of low appetite. And in mid-April, the government was compelled to cancel the auction of a 15-year bond on low appetite from investors. Inakaa mambo ni fiam. Dennis Mbanda, what do you make of this?
Well, you know, this government has a high affinity of borrowing. They have the appetite to borrow is unmatched. And you know, you remember a few years back, rather a few months ago.
Just this government, though?
Yeah.
This is a debt that has been accumulated significantly in the course of the previous administration, to be fair.
Without doubt.
Yes.
But remember when the new administration was coming in, or during their campaigns, they said that they will be able to cut down their budget and borrowing. But that has not been the case. The president promised to cut down borrowing by 300 billion through austerity measures. But if you look at the new budget as it is, there is an increase of about 480 billion. So nothing has been reduced. I think that is why the finance bill has drawn a lot of tension and critique across the divide. But if you look at the CBK report by the former governor, if the current market cannot sustain the borrowing within the domestic market, like now he says 521.5 billion to be sought from the domestic market. And he's saying that the current economy as it is cannot sustain this. And I don't know. I think the government has to do something, because this one is going to bring more harm than good, especially by, you know, investors. When we have investors coming to the country and we cannot sustain the little that we borrow from within, and vis-a-vis what we borrow from external borrowing, you know, this country should live within its means. And if you see a country borrow money to spend on recurrent expenditure, and this money is not going to any development, this money is just, we are borrowing to use to spend. I think that is something that we need to check. Funny enough, this money that, you know, that is borrowed, it is still getting lost within the quarters of the government. We need to ensure that we seal the loopholes of government of our expenditures. I think this is something that we really need to look at.
All right.
Yeah.
And Advice Modalo has joined us. Good morning.
Morning.
You know, we're discussing Sabina Chege right at the start, even before we got into the newspaper. So I will give you opportunity to respond to that. But because I want to wrap up the newspaper review, what do you make of this statement? The domestic borrowing target for 2023-2024 is quite ambitious due to limited market capacity. In our view, this higher borrowing target is likely to have a disproportionately negative impact on yield curve stability and market confidence, risking contagion across the total value of outstanding debt stock. The CBK governor's warning of hurdles meeting borrowing target domestically.
Thank you. First of all, good morning, Olive. Good morning to the viewers. I think this borrowing menace is a problem that is here with us, and I don't see it going away very soon, because this is something we have talked about over and over again. But in my view, one of the biggest problems we have as a country is not necessarily the borrowing, is where we put the money that we borrow. If the money that was being borrowed in this country was being put to the right use and making the lives of Kenyans better, then nobody would be complaining about this borrowing menace. But the biggest tragedy is we borrow, yes, but where do we take the money? So even as we get into this hurdle that we are being warned about, the question that should be with government is, the money that we are borrowing, can we be able to help Kenyans? Can that money be able to be used in production, in agriculture? Can it be more productive than it is? Because when we borrow to fund corruption, it becomes unnecessary. When we borrow to fund a few individuals, it becomes unnecessary. When we borrow to just be able to sustain the pockets of a few people, that is where the biggest tragedy of borrowing comes in. So for me, it's not more about the borrowing and the targets, but more about, where are we taking the money? Are we still losing, former president said, 2 billion every day? Are we borrowing to fund that loss of 2 billion every day? If we can be able to really get to a point where we borrow for the right uses, then we'll be doing better as a country.
All right. Joseph, sija kusahau, I just want to tie it into a couple of other things. Yes, there are a couple of other headlines. Okay, wrapping up with the front page here, because it all comes back to, at least for me this morning, the proposals that have been made, the counter proposals that have been made by Raila Odinga on how to address the fiscal crisis. And some of what he says is curbing wastage in the executive, and what you've talked about, where the money goes, advice, and sealing corruption loopholes. Okay, let's wrap it up with, what is this? Business Daily. Also, the ticker Kengen delays payment of 923 million shilling treasury dividend. And power producer Kengen has delayed the payment of a 923 million shilling dividend to the treasury, which is its major shareholder with a 70% stake. The company on March the 30th paid other shareholders a total of 395.8 million shillings after declaring a dividend of 0.2 shillings per share on a total of 1.3 billion for the year June 2022. Okay, Taifa Leo, Kiare kuwinda mamamboga. Mamlaka ya ukusanyaji wa ushuru Kenya, KRA, imetengwa bilioni 1.2. Did I get that right, guys?
Yes.
Okay. Za kuajiri maafisa zaidi wa kijasusi na utekelezaji ambao jukumu lao litakuwa ni kuandama na kunasa wanaokwepa kulipa ushuru katika juhudi mpya za kuongeza mapato ya serikali ikome kutegemea mikopo. So it has come back full circle to borrowing. This was the front page story, I believe, yesterday, Daily Nation. Let me just pull it up for those who may not have seen it. E-paper. E-paper.nation.africa is where you need to go. And you can get even archived copies of the paper. Was it yesterday's? Was it the... Am I forgetting something? Okay, I will find... Let's take a break. I find it, that one for 1.2 billion. And then we'll look at the Standard and the Stein. It still ties into our topic this morning. And that is this affordable housing proposal. Is it the cure for unemployment in Kenya? The president said 800,000 per year leave school to join the job market. More on that on the other side of this break.